Hotel Ballroom, Tech Medical Conference, San Francisco. I stood just behind the black velvet curtain, tucked in the shadows near stage right. The lights out front were blinding. The applause thundered like it was for royalty. And then I heard it. Please welcome the co-founder of Biocore Labs and the brilliant mind behind Pulse Relief TM, Mr. Kevin Dao. The crowd rose to their feet. Hundreds of people, investors, journalists, clinicians, people who'd flown across the country to witness the future of pain relief. They clapped for my younger brother. The cameras zoomed in on him as he stepped onto the stage, tailored Italian suit, perfect smile, hands raised in a modest but calculated wave. I didn't move, just stood there, stone still in the wings, in my gray blazer, holding the clicker, holding back a truth that now burned. He was the showpiece. I was the shadow. Thank you all, Kevin began, voice clear, charming. Pulse Relief TM represents years of research and bold innovation. It's a non-invasive way to manage chronic pain, without drugs, without side effects. I stared at his face, calm, confident, like he'd earned this. I'm honored to lead this vision as its inventor and strategic architect. Inventor. That word cracked something open in my chest, because the first prototype of Pulse Relief TM had been built in my apartment, because I'd filed the provisional patent in my name in 2019, because I'd tested it on myself months before it ever had a logo or a name. On screen behind him, the LED wall lit up with a full-slide image. Pulse Relief, created by Kevin Dao. I scanned the stage backdrop for my name. Nothing, not even the footnote. In the front row, I saw my father, Daniel Dao, nodding with pride. He leaned over to whisper something to a man in a navy suit, probably an investor from Venture West. My mother, sitting beside him, didn't clap. She just watched, eyes lowered, hands folded. She didn't look at me. She knew, they all did. Just weeks ago, I was the head of R&D. Today, I was invisible. I watched my brother speak with ease, pitching the product I'd poured 4 years of my life into. The algorithms, the neurostimulation model, the safety profile. All mine. We're already seeing incredible demand, Kevin said, clicking to the next slide. And this is only the beginning. The audience nodded, eager, impressed. And I turned away, not out of anger, but because for the first time in years, I understood something clearly. This is no longer my stage, and this is no longer my company. Basement Lab, Night, Berkeley, California. 4 years before the ballroom lights. 4 years before they erased my name. There was only me, and a folding table, a whiteboard, and a wall full of scribbled napkin sketches. I didn't have investors back then. Just calloused fingers and a stubborn obsession with solving one thing. How do you stop pain without numbing the brain? That's all I ever wanted to do. My apartment smelled like old solder and green tea. My cat, Newton, used to curl around the old oscilloscope cables while I tweaked frequencies at 3:00 a.m. most nights. I didn't sleep. Instead, I tinkered with the waveform modulator, trying to sync artificial pulses with the body's natural nerve response. I ran tests on silicone pads and dissected case studies from Switzerland. I measured every microvolt manually because I didn't trust the cheap AI monitors. No one called, no one asked what I was doing, and that was fine. Until one day, my father did. He showed up unannounced, still in his business shirt from the Biocore office. He stood in the doorway of my basement, arms crossed, scanning the chaos like it was a child's science project. Still playing doctor down here? He asked. I didn't laugh. It's not a toy, I said. It's working. I handed him the prototype. A simple patch, no bigger than a silver dollar, with a thin mesh electrode and a chip I'd programmed myself. It reduces inflammation by interrupting C-fiber transmissions, without opiates, without pills. He didn't even sit down. Looks expensive, he said. It's not meant to be cheap, I replied. It's meant to work. He paused, looked down, then nodded slowly. If it's real, you need to move it under the company. No one will take this seriously if it stays in a basement. I hesitated. I knew what move it under the company really meant. We can license it to Biocore for now, I offered. A provisional agreement, but I keep the patent. He looked surprised. not angry, not impressed, just puzzled. "What do you need a patent for?" I said nothing, because I already knew. Because I'd already seen too many women in STEM get folded into footnotes. And because I had a rule: don't confuse family with fairness. 2 weeks later, I filed patent hash US 980-1722B under my full name, Dr. Lina Dao. That night, I signed the licensing deal with Biocore, not because I trusted them, but because I believed in the science, and I believed maybe they'd see me once it worked. They didn't, but the device did. INT. BIOCORELABS, headquarters, 18 months after prototype. The launch was small. No stage, no applause, just a quiet internal demo in our own testing facility. But when we placed pulse relief TM on the lower back of a patient with rheumatoid pain, and the monitor showed a 70% drop in nerve response after 6 minutes, I knew we had something real. Investors began circling within the month. My inbox filled with questions from pain management clinics and VA hospitals. Doctors were curious, skeptical, then impressed. And the numbers spoke louder than any pitch deck. 90% of test users reported decreased pain in under 10 minutes. The press called it a non-invasive revolution. And for a little while, they put my name in the byline. Lina Dao, the lead researcher behind Biocore's breakthrough. But that didn't last, because that was also the month Kevin came home from business school. I remember the first time he sat in on a product meeting. He didn't ask about the algorithm. He asked what color the box should be, what the brand font felt like, and whether pulse relief sounded too medical. I didn't mind. I thought he was helping. But then he started speaking for me. What Dr. Dao means is, we're thinking of expanding into wearable tech next year. He hadn't written a line of code, hadn't calibrated a single sensor. But slowly, the presentations began to shift. First he stood next to me, then in front of me, then alone, boardroom 3 months later. It was a Thursday when it happened. We were all seated at the long glass table, me, my father, a few angel investors, and the new director of clinical affairs. I had just finished outlining the updated efficacy data when my father leaned forward. "We've been evaluating leadership structure moving forward," he said, voice neutral. "Given our scaling needs, we think it's time Kevin steps into a more formal role." I blinked. "Formal role?" I asked. "Chief Product Strategist," my dad said. I looked at Kevin. He smiled sheepishly. "It's just a title," he said. "We're all a team, right?" But it wasn't just a title. Because 2 weeks later, Kevin's name appeared on the pitch deck as co-founder. And mine, removed. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I kept working. I stayed late. I answered investor calls. I debugged firmware. I personally restructured the sensor array when the second batch failed the FDA stress test. And every time I asked about equity or recognition, my father said the same thing: "Your time will come, Lina." It didn't. Linas apartment, night. I remember sitting at my desk at 2 a.m., staring at the first draft of the pulse relief clinical study. I opened the Word doc. The header read, "Lead author, Kevin Dao, MBA." I didn't even cry. I just opened the drawer and pulled out the original certificate. Patent US 981722B, still in my name, still mine. I stared at it for a long time and said quietly, like a prayer, "Take the stage, take the glory, but don't forget who built the engine." Tech pitch event, BIOCORE presentation, 8 months before the conference. The ballroom was slick with artificial confidence. LED lights danced across white leather chairs. Waiters passed glasses of sparkling water with lemon twists. Every badge had VC, founder, or media printed in bold silver font. I stood near the corner of the room, a badge that simply read, "Dr. Lina Dao, Product Team." Product, not R&D lead, not inventor. Just product. Kevin stood center stage again, this time delivering the final investor pitch to close our Series A round. I had reviewed the slides the night before. They were clean, confident, mostly accurate. Until they were. By Q4, we project Pulse Relief TM will be fully integrated with wearable health platforms, including real-time pain analytics and cloud-based symptom tracking. I froze. That wasn't true. Those features weren't approved. They hadn't even passed internal safety benchmarks. My hand tightened around my tablet. I scanned the crowd. They nodded, impressed. Kevin continued. Our platform isn't just about relieving pain. It's about owning the future of biointegrated medicine. Owning, I heard that word louder than any other. Not serving, not sharing, owning, he smiled wide. Pulse Relief is already patent protected under BioCore IP assets, with exclusive licensing secured. And just like that, he lied, because the patent wasn't under BioCore, it was under me. Doctor. Lina Dao, I whispered under my breath. Filed, signed, archived, protected. Int, BIOCRE office, next morning. I came in early. No makeup, no fanfare, just a mission. I walked past the receptionist, past the boardroom, past the desk with my name plaque that now just said staff. I opened my laptop and printed two things. One, a clean resignation letter. Two, a list of all my lab notes, supplier contacts, and prototype blueprints, none of which were company assets under the terms of the provisional license I'd signed 4 years ago. I unplugged my external drive, packed my notebooks, took one final look around the office I helped build. At 1 a.m., Kevin walked in. Lina, big day, that demo killed last night. Wait, where are you going? Not a big deal, I said, slipping the letter into Dad's office mail tray. I'm just walking out of a building that doesn't see me. Wait, don't be dramatic. No, I said, turning to face him. This is me being precise. You don't need me, remember. You have the future of medicine in a slide deck. He blinked, thrown off by my calm. Look, he said, lowering his voice, you're brilliant. Just don't make this personal, it's business. Exactly, I said. And business is built on ownership. That's what you want, right? He nodded slowly, unsure. Then best of luck without mine. And with that, I walked out. No slamming doors, no press release, just footsteps. Quiet, firm, final, int. Lina's apartment, that night. I sat in the dark, surrounded by the blue glow of my laptop. My phone buzzed. A text from Kevin. Dad says we need to talk. Investors are asking questions. Another from our supplier. Hey Lina, we just got a contract revision without your name. Can you confirm? And one more from a contact I hadn't expected. Dr. Elias Rowe. Hi Lina, just saw the news about Pulse Relief Series A. Didn't see your name. I'd love to chat. There's a clinical application I think you'd be perfect for. Coffee. I stared at the screen, then closed my laptop. For the first time in years, I wasn't angry. I was free. You can't be erased when you own the ink. Int. BIOCORE boardroom 6 weeks later. It was supposed to be a routine due diligence session. The firm leading BioCore's Series A round, Westridge Capital, had flown in 2 analysts and their lead counsel. They were there to verify the usual: equity structure, compliance, IP chain of custody. Kevin was seated at the head of the table, sleeves rolled, espresso in hand. He looked tired but confident. My father, Daniel, sat beside him, more stiff, more careful. Let us know if you need anything, Kevin said, smiling at the Westridge team. The analyst, mid-30s, sharp suit, polite voice, nodded as he adjusted his glasses. Actually, we do have one question. It's about the Pulse Relief TM patent. Kevin sat up straighter. Sure, it's protected under BioCore, filed as of 2020. That's what your slide deck says. But USPTO records show something else. He clicked his laptop. The screen mirrored to the projector. And there it was. Plain and irreversible. U.S. Patent 980-1722, B. Non-invasive peripheral nerve stimulator. Filed, Dr. Lina Dao. Status, active. Assignee, none. The silence was suffocating. My father cleared his throat. That must be an old provisional. It was converted to non-provisional 2 years ago, the analyst said. Still active. Still hers. Kevin's voice cracked slightly. We had an agreement. The lead counsel from Westridge looked up. Do you have a signed IP transfer? Kevin blinked. She licensed it to us. License is not ownership, the counsel replied. And this deal requires clean ownership. So what are you saying? Daniel asked, jaw tight. The lawyer closed the folder in front of her. I'm saying your entire Series A hinges on a signature that you don't have. Int, Linas private office. That same day, elsewhere in San Francisco. I was mid-email when I saw the text. From Kevin, can we meet, please, just us. 10 minutes later, a follow-up from my father. From Dad, investors are threatening to walk. We need to fix this. I stared at the phone for a full minute, then replied, 3:30, my office, bring no one else. Int, Linas office, 3:32 p.m. The room was quiet, warm, filled with plants. A chalkboard wall bore formulas and sketches, early concepts of a next-gen version of pulse relief, far beyond what Biocore had ever imagined. Kevin stepped in alone, not in a suit, not with a smirk, just exhausted. You win, he said, no hello, no pretense. I didn't play a game, I replied. You just assumed I wouldn't read the rulebook. He sat, rubbed his eyes. What do you want, Lina? To be back on the board, to be in the spotlight. I want my work to go where it belongs, I said, but this time with the right signature underneath. I slid a folder across the table. It read, Amended Licensing Agreement. Exclusive rights, Biocore Labs, $4.08 upfront plus 3% royalty. Sign it, I said. You keep your investors, I keep my name. He scanned the document. This is insane. No, I replied, this is legal. Kevin leaned back, exhaled. Dad's not going to like this. Dad doesn't own the patent, but you'd still let us have it. I'm not here to destroy you, Kevin. I'm here to remind you who built what you're standing on. He signed. Silence settled again, this time different. As he slid the folder back, he looked up. Why now? He asked. Why not just burn it all down? I smiled softly. Because I didn't come here to take revenge. I came here to take back authorship. Next, streets of San Francisco, evening. I walked out of the building, wind brushing against my coat. No applause, no headlines, no grand reveal. Just a folder in my hand and my name on the future. Sometimes the quietest comebacks are the most permanent. Next, Health Tech Expo, 1 year later, Austin, Texas. This time, the badge didn't say staff. It said, Dr. Lina Dao, founder and CEO, NeuroHaven. No one put me in the corner. No one forgot my name. No one double-checked the spelling, because I owned it. The booth wasn't the biggest, not like Biocore's massive LED monstrosity on the other end of the hall. But ours was calm, clean, and honest. Brushed steel display stands, real testimonials on soft-lit screens, and on the front table, a single clear case containing SoothSync TM, the world's first dual-pathway pain modulator. Smaller than pulse relief, smarter, sleeker, designed not just by engineers, but with patience. The press showed up. So did the doctors. And for the first time in my career, the words they spoke were mine. Dr. Dao, can you walk us through the layered wave sequencing? How did you keep the latency under 10 ms without skin damage? Was this inspired by your early pat from 2019? Yes, it was. Int. Tech stage panel discussion later that day. I sat beside Dr. Elias Rowe and 2 other founders. The topic, Reclaiming Innovation, Female Founders in MedTech. The moderator turned to me. Dr. Dao, what's one thing you would say to your younger self? I paused, fingers resting lightly on the microphone. Don't wait for the room to clap, I said. Build your own stage, bring your own chair, and carve your name into the blueprint before they call it theirs. The audience applauded, but I didn't smile for them. I smiled for myself. Int. Hotel room that night. Back at the hotel, I curled on the couch with Newton. Yes, he's still alive and judgy, sipping ginger tea. My inbox chimed. A message from a senior editor at Fast Company. Subject, feature request, SoothSync's Quiet Revolution. We'd love to profile your journey from inventor to founder, especially the early years, when no one saw you coming. I replied, sure. Let me know when. I've kept the receipts. Just as I hit send, another message arrived. From Kevin, saw the product launch. Congratulations, you were always the visionary. I didn't see it then. I see it now. Hope we can talk sometime. I stared at the screen, then closed the laptop. Because some conversations don't need reopening, some stories rewrite themselves, and some women don't need validation when they already have ownership. Ext. Night sky over Austin. Somewhere below, Pulse Relief was still selling under Biocore's name. But up here, where peace lives, I had something rarer than profit. My name, my work, my voice, my silence, my company, my future. And for once, the world didn't just see me, they knew who built it. Int. Coffee shop, 2 weeks after the conference. I wasn't sure why I said yes to coffee. Elias had emailed me after the expo. Subject line. Tea coffee, but let's call it neutral ground. I smiled when I saw it. We hadn't spoken outside of panels and investor intros. But he was the kind of man who listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, he made space. I arrived early again, old habits, he was already there. Lina, he said, standing, I got you ginger tea and a backup in case I was wrong. He slid a chamomile across the table, not flashy, just thoughtful. Thanks, I said. I didn't expect to see you here so soon. You've been showing up for years, he replied. I figured I'd start showing up too. Int, coffee shop later. We didn't talk about tech, not for the first 30 minutes. He asked what I read before bed. Neurology journals and old poetry anthologies. He asked if I still had Newton. Yes, still judgmental, still king of my apartment. You always look like you're thinking 3 steps ahead, he said gently. Did anyone ever ask what you were hoping for? No one had until now. Ext, City Park, a few meetings later. It wasn't a date, not officially. But he brought a thermos of tea, and I brought Newton in his ridiculous pet carrier shaped like a spaceship. We sat on a bench overlooking the water. No pressure, no pitch decks, no timelines, just a quiet hour, a gentle breeze. 2 people with tired eyes finally resting. You know, he said, watching a pair of kids chase pigeons. Some of us didn't miss you, we were just waiting for you to choose yourself. And what if I forget how to let someone in? He smiled softly, then I'll remind you without pushing. Int, Linas apartment, 3 months later. There's a different kind of silence when someone stays and doesn't expect anything. Elias never made me explain the patents. He didn't ask for the pitch before dinner. He didn't call what I'd built impressive just to flatter me. Instead, he stayed late once, holding Newton while I restructured a late-stage trial protocol. He made pasta the night I got my FDA approval email. He never interrupted when I cried reading my old lab notes. And one night, when I fell asleep at the desk again, he left a sticky note on my monitor. You didn't have to burn out to matter. I see you, always have. Ext, launch night, NEUROHAVN HQ. The lights were soft. The product was live. The room was filled with doctors, founders, and one very sleepy cat watching from the live stream. I stepped forward to speak, not with fear, not with apology, but with peace. And as I looked at the crowd, I found Elias near the back. No flash, no camera, just a small nod. Like he'd been here the whole time, because he had. Some love doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives with understanding, patience, and tea. Epilogue 1 year later. Ext, Lisbon, Portugal, sunset on a balcony overlooking the sea. The sky looked like melted copper. Waves hummed below like a lullaby, slow and sure. In the distance, the April breeze carried the clinking of cafe glasses, the soft laughter of tourists, and the song of someone playing cello in the square. Lina sat barefoot on the edge of a sun-warmed balcony, legs curled under her, a half-read book resting on her lap. Her hair was looser now, so was her breath. Next to her, Elias poured them each a glass of chilled white tea. You didn't open your email today, he said, smiling without looking up. Not yet, she replied, still pretending it doesn't exist. He handed her a tablet anyway. She sighed, the headline read, SoothSync wins WHO Global Innovation Medal for non-opioid pain management. Founder Lina Dao proves that quiet revolutions still change lives. She stared for a long moment, then locked the screen and set it aside. I'm proud, she said quietly, but I think I'm more proud that I didn't need to read it to believe it. Elias reached over and gently touched her wrist. The world's just catching up to what I saw years ago. They can have the applause, Lina whispered. I just want this, sunsets, tea, and someone who doesn't need me to prove anything. Int, Airbnb kitchen, later that night. A pot simmered softly on the stove. Rice, lemongrass, and ginger. Newton, now nearly 15, dozed in the corner like a retired king. Elias walked up behind her as she stirred. "Do you miss the stage?" he asked. "No," she said. "I never wanted a stage. I just wanted a name that no one could erase." He kissed the top of her head. "You built more than that, you built a life." Exed, balcony late night, wind rustling through leaves. Later, alone with her tea, Lina pulled out a notebook. Not for patents, not for strategy, just thoughts. She wrote on the first page, "I once believed I had to shout to be heard, but turns out when you build something real, the silence listens." She looked out at the stars, and for the first time in forever, she didn't feel the need to win anything, because she already had. The end. A story of quiet power, honest love, and the name they couldn't erase.